As I went through my Primal Rage No Damage challenge, there was at least one common thread throughout each of the live streams. And it boiled down to, my God, look at that stick! So today I thought I would do a bit of show and tell, and go into detail about what I have been affectionately calling the Rage Stick. Right here is what you've seen me using to play Primal Rage, and it's the second stick like it. That's right, there's two of them. There is a Player 1 and a Player 2 variant of the same stick. I refer to them that way because their color schemes are modeled after the control panel of a real cabinet. That authenticity will be a theme going forward as we get into the nitty-gritty of the parts involved. These sticks are custom built and specifically designed for Primal Rage, but they do come in handy for other arcade fighters too. Both of these sticks are identical with two minor differences. The Player 2 variant is a bit newer, which has a slight revision on the interior. And Player 2 also has this hastily wired DB15 connector right now. My Supergun only accepts DB15, and I don't have a clean solution to adding a connector to the outside of the enclosure. Projects like the USB to DB15 exist, but I didn't want to wait. The enclosure itself comes from all fight sticks and is the 14-inch Industrious Lorenzo body. This gives me plenty of room on the inside for everything I need, especially since my choice in buttons is a bit longer. On the front of the stick, we have an array of standard Sanwa 24mm buttons and a Nutrig USB along with a colored gasket for flare. I won't be using these buttons very often, so the brand and model of push button honestly doesn't matter here. Moving to the top panel now, this is a Capcom 8 layout. I chose this over the more ergonomic styles like Noir or Vuelix because the grid pattern lends itself more easily to pull off those specials that Primal Rage is known for, and especially those much more complicated 3-button specials. Speaking of the buttons, these are 30mm Industrious Lorenzo concave buttons, just like you would find on a cabinet. As compared to their Japanese contemporaries, these buttons are solid. There is absolutely no wobble here, and the firm press assures you know for a fact when you've pressed it. The stick similarly is an Industrious Lorenzo Euro stick, albeit slightly modified. How, you ask? I harvested the softer springs found in standard Suzo-Hap competition sticks and swapped them into the Euro sticks. Now, this is where things get a little bit silly with regards to authenticity. See, back in the 90s, Suzo-Hap made a great many controls for arcade cabinets here in the West, Primal Rage included. So you might be thinking, then why would you not just use a Hap competition stick? I did! And although these two sticks look exactly alike, they play differently. When I switched from IL to Hap, I noticed suddenly I'm missing corners. There's just a lot less precision on a stick that already doesn't have a gate, which was completely unacceptable. So what gives? As it happens, back in the day, it was Industrious Lorenzo that both designed and manufactured parts for Suzo-Hap. Later on, IL split off from Hap and are now making the same parts under their own name. So rather than play the game on inferior hardware and try to compensate, I instead harvested the springs from the Hap competition and dropped it into the Industrious Lorenzo Euro stick. This maintains the authentic feel of an original Primal Rage stick without worrying if my moves were going to miss. Moving on to the top panel artwork, I made it myself in Photoshop with the help of a template provided by All Fight Sticks and a printing service offered by Focus Attack. For the Player 1 variant, I originally wanted to just literally use the control panel from a Primal Rage arcade cabinet. But I decided to go with something inspired by that design instead, keeping the magma and lava flow as a central feature. I added the logo at the bottom and button labels kinda sorta how they are on a control panel. Player 2 is much the same, except I used a screenshot of the Earth from the game's intro sequence. That takes care of everything on the outside, so let's take a peek on what's inside. I apologize for the rat's nest in here. You don't commonly stare at the wires, so I didn't exactly take a lot of care in regards to cable management, or labeling for that matter. So long as I can push buttons without stuff getting disconnected, that's fine to me. Starting with the PCB, I used the Brook Universal Fighting Board in both sticks. Although I don't own any modern consoles, and I probably could have gotten away with a cheaper model of board, what it came down to is I just don't trust Windows. To this day, there are bugs in X input that disable the left and right triggers in some games and emulators. And while I don't commonly use all 8 buttons, I'd like the option. So I sprung for the Universal Fighting Boards to be absolutely certain that I would find a configuration that works. When it comes to connecting everything to it, I am not an experienced builder, so it's pretty hacky up in here. First of all, the terminals on all of these switches that IL uses are .187 instead of the .110 that are commonly found on Japanese parts. Now, me not knowing what I'm doing, I chose to use an all-in-one harness meant for Japanese parts and then adapt every cable to .187, including the 5-pin harness that is intended for the stick. What I should have done is simply wired the stick and buttons to the terminal block on the Brook Universal board and skipped all this adapting stuff that I was doing. But you live and learn. If I do another stick like this, it will be different next time. Before I forget, I mentioned that the Player 2 stick is newer and had a revision to the internals. Well, that revision is that there is a dedicated spot to mount your PCB, and I can't believe the first revision didn't have this feature. Big fan. Now remember, the Player 2 variant is currently hardwired to a DB15 connector, so that's why there's not a whole lot connected to the Brook Universal. It also has fewer screws on the bottom to assemble or disassemble it. And that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at the Rage sticks and the borderline crazy degree to which I held on to authenticity for these builds. Anyway, if you happen to have more questions about these sticks, feel free to leave something for me in the comments below. They may not be the cleanest builds in some respects, but I am very proud of them. For now, I've been Tom from Mystery Game Fight Club, and I'll see you around. Rage!